Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. October 12th, 1997. It's week 7 of the NFL season, and we've got an NFC battle on our hands at the Metrodome up in Minneapolis, between the Carolina Panthers and the Minnesota Vikings. As we're approaching the halfway point of the year, this is a big game for both of these teams. For the Panthers, they're a disappointing 2-3 following a season where they made it to the NFC Championship, in a season and a game that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. A win here gets them back to 500 and puts them in the thick of things not just for the wildcard race, but for the division hunt alongside the San Francisco 49ers. Lose this one though, and the division will definitely be an uphill climb, as will the wildcard. As for the Vikings, the NFC Central is super competitive, with the Vikings sitting at 4-2 alongside the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at 5-1. You don't have a ton of room for error if you want to win the division, host a playoff game, and possibly get home field advantage. So a lot was on the line for both of these teams. As for how this game turned out, the Vikings prevailed in front of their home fans and won it by a final score of 21-14. With the game tied at 14 apiece, an awful turnover by Panthers wide receiver Ray Caruth gave the Vikings the ball in Carolina territory with about 5 minutes left. From there, a 38-yard pass got the Vikings in the red zone, and from there, Robert Smith punched it in from 4 yards out to give the Vikings the 21-14 lead that was enough to win the contest and improve to 5-2. A great day for the Vikings in what was shaping up to be a great season, as they headed into the bye week on a 3-game winning streak and with all the momentum in the world on their side. However, after the contest, this game was not notable because of what happened on the field. Rather, this game was notable and is remembered more than a quarter century later because of what happened during the broadcast. If you were in the stadium that day, you had no idea that it happened. Heck, if you were watching the broadcast, you might have had no idea that this happened. But for those who knew, oh man, it was bad. Because during the broadcast of this 1997 game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Carolina Panthers, play-by-play man Paul Kennedy said something absolutely insane that maybe got him suspended, and let's just say deserves a deep dive today for how laughably incorrect it was. And to say that Fox got a lot of criticism for this would be putting it lightly. Because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the worst, the stupidest, and the dumbest mistake by any broadcaster in the 30-year history of the NFL on Fox. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand who this man right here is. This is Minnesota Vikings kicker Eddie Murray, and he is one of the greatest kickers in the history of the NFL. I'd honestly be here all day if I listed every single accolade of his entire career, because he truly is one of the most accomplished kickers to ever play the sport. However, for most of his career, he did it as a member of the team that you've been watching him with this whole time, the Detroit Lions, which is where he played from 1980 to 91. Entering this game against the Panthers, Murray, over his near 2-decade-long career, had hit a whopping 327 field goals, which was the 6th most in NFL history, and only trailed Nick Lowry, Jan Stenerud, Gary Anderson, Morton Anderson, and George Blanda. In terms of scoring points, when you combine his extra points and his field goals, he had 1,485 of them, which was 7th in league history, only behind those 5 aforementioned guys and Lou Groza of the Cleveland Browns. And he did all of this while being extremely accurate, hitting 76% of his kicks. Now that might not sound super impressive by today's standards, but trust me, that was incredible, as that made him one of the 15 most accurate kickers in league history at the time. He led the league in field goal percentage in both 1988 and 1989 by hitting 40 out of 42 kicks across the two seasons. He made the Pro Bowl in 1980 and 1989. He was named an AP First Team All-Pro in 1980 and an AP Second Team All-Pro in 1988, and was just an incredibly reliable and incredibly consistent kicker for a long period of time. But for the purposes of our story, there is one thing in particular that we need to focus on, and that is how good he was at these kicks right here. These are extra points. If you don't know what an extra point is, after a touchdown, a team has the option to try a kick from the 2-yard line to get one additional point. Today, these kicks are done from the 15-yard line to make it a bit tougher because kickers were becoming way too good at these. But this is a 19-yard kick to give your team one additional point. Most kickers are great at these, but Eddie Murray was really, really good at these, to the point where more often than not, he went an entire season without missing a single kick. Not one shank, not one block. He was perfect. By this point in his career, Murray had hit on over 99% of his extra points, which was up there with one of the highest percentages in NFL history. On December 11, 1988, in a 13-12 loss to the Chicago Bears, Murray missed an extra point. It was a costly miss, seeing as it came in the fourth quarter in a 1-point loss, but he redeemed himself, because after that kick, he didn't miss another kick for the rest of the season, or 1989, or 1990, or 1991, or, well, you get the idea. Entering this game against the Carolina Panthers, Murray had hit his last 234 extra points. That is 234 straight kicks without missing one. The last time he missed an extra point, the #1 song in the country was Look Away by Chicago, and the #1 movie at the box office was Twins. Now, it was 1997. The team that the Vikings were playing, not only did they not exist back in 1988, but they weren't even a concept yet. Murray's streak was historic, and now he just needed one more extra point for the record, set by Tommy Davis 32 years before. Make the first extra point of the game, and you've got 235 consecutive extra points, and you hold the all-time record for most consecutive makes from the spot. And sure enough, Murray was going to get his opportunity. Chris Carter makes a diving catch in the end zone and gives the Vikings a 6-0 lead. Now, there is pass interference on the play, and it is declined, and there is serious debate about whether this even should have been ruled a touchdown in the first place, seeing as the ball hits the ground and Carter bobbles it, never really having control. But regardless, there's no instant replay back in 1997, so the touchdown is good, and that's that. With that, Murray lines up for the extra point. Hit this, and the record is yours. Time to make some history.
This for the all-time consecutive extra point record. It belongs to Eddie Murray.
There it is. Number 235 in a row. A historic moment in NFL history, a historic moment for the great career of Eddie Murray, and the crowd acknowledges him and recognizes the longevity of this streak that might never be broken again in their eyes. And to Fox's credit, they acknowledge the moment, as on the ensuing kickoff, this happens.
As the oldest man at the age of 41 of the more than 1,500 that play in the National Football League, has just established a new all-time mark, and his father is here, his family looking on, his wife Chris.
What a great moment, and great job by Fox there. Murray sets the record, they're prepared, and they have the shot of Murray's family and loved ones in the stands ready to go for the historic occasion. You've got his father cheering him on in the crowd to watch him set history, and you've got his wife right next to him to watch the historic moment unfold. What a touching moment, and what a great job by Fox and play-by-play man Paul Kennedy to capture the moment on the air. However, there's just one small problem with this. There's just one teeny tiny problem with what Kennedy said during this moment. It might be a nitpick, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh, but yeah, neither of those people were related to Murray whatsoever. See that man? that was not his father, as Kennedy said. See that woman? That was not his wife, as Kennedy said. Turns out, they were two completely random people. I am not making that up. It seems too absurd to believe, but I swear, I am not making that up. And I don't mean that it was just a slight miscommunication, where the man wasn't really the father, but rather the grandfather, and Murray viewed him as his real father since he took care of him most of the time, and the woman wasn't really the wife, but rather a longtime girlfriend and now fiancé, and they were going to get married in a few days. This is not a nitpick on my end. No, I mean that they were literally two completely random strangers that had no relation to Murray whatsoever. See that man? That's not his father. That's Sid Rubin, as in a family friend. So you might be asking, if that's not his father, then where was his father? And why wasn't he there to witness the moment? Well, that's because Eddie Murray's father was dead. He died over 20 years ago. He was not in the stadium that day because he quite literally was not alive, dying back in the 1970s, and had literally never been alive for a single second that the Metrodome, the stadium that this game was played in, was in operation. ESPN's strategy in something like this is to milk the death for all you can and create the world's greatest sob story. Fox's strategy is, screw it, we'll make up a new father. How you somehow got that wrong, I have no clue. But picking a random person as the father for a man that's been dead for 20 years is, well, it's something, alright. What about the woman? That's not his wife. In fact, that was a woman named Chris, as in a friend of Mitch Berger's girlfriend or the team's punter. So you might be asking, where was the wife? Well, the wife, Cindy, was at home in Detroit with her 8-month-old daughter, so she was not even at the stadium. At least she was alive, though. And making matters even worse, it's not like it's even remotely possible to mistake Chris with Cindy, because the woman on the screen is black, and Eddie Murray's wife is white. So not only is the father just a random person, with the actual father being dead for 20 years, but the wife is also not just a random person, but a random person of a completely different skin color. It's like if I confuse Will Smith with Jack Black. It is absolutely insane in every sense of the word. And afterwards, oh man, Fox got a ton of blowback from this, seeing as they just misidentified Eddie Murray's dead father as an alive person and misidentified Eddie Murray's wife as a woman of a completely different skin color. Fortunately, Murray had a good sense of humor afterwards, but he was a bit upset at first, saying, "It's pretty wild to make that stuff up without actually asking." And yeah, Eddie, I tend to agree with you there. It's kind of wild to find out that the man was not your beautiful father, and that woman was not your beautiful wife. And you're watching the broadcast and asking yourself, how did we get here? It's pretty wild to not verify that stuff beforehand, especially when it's something super easy like this, seeing as Fox had to have the camera shot ready to go. So they just picked two random people, even though they weren't sure. Said Murray afterwards, "My friend-in-law, my brother, and my sister in California all called me. They all got the game on television, and they were asking, 'Who is this Chris?' Then, Rubin's wife called and said, 'Oh, so now I'm your mother.' It was becoming more of a joke. Cindy, as in Eddie's actual wife, joked about the thing, saying, 'I thought, this is my life. I'm going to be there with him for the next 5 games. We talked about it, and said if I flew in for the game Sunday, he'd probably kick 4 field goals and no extra points. I just said, boy, he moves quick if he has another wife there already. I'm going to have to check the Minnesota marriage laws.' Fox, understandably, apologized for the incident, with Fox calling up Murray and his actual family, not the fake one, the next day and being mortified. Vince Waldika, the vice president for media relations, said on this, it was a team mistake, and that Kennedy was misinformed by someone on the Fox game crew. But the damage had been done, because Paul Kennedy just revealed to the entire world that Murray's father and wife were two completely random strangers, and they had no problem saying that to the country without verifying the information first. And Kennedy blaming the mistake on bad information relayed to him is not an excuse. No one held a gun to his head and told him to say that on the air. If he had done his research like a good broadcaster does, he would have known better. Or you can just do what I always do when calling games and I didn't know something. Just don't say it. If you don't know it, don't freaking say it. Instead, we got this entire debacle. For those wondering, Eddie Murray eventually lost his extra point record to the man who now holds it, Stephen Gostkowski, the New England Patriots kicker who might set the NFL record that is unbreakable considering the rule changes, with 423 consecutive extra points. Don't think anyone's touching that anytime soon. As for Paul Kennedy, the play-by-play man involved in this incident, well, he didn't work another game for Fox after the game between these two teams behind me, the Vikings and the Panthers, for another month. And keep in mind, he was working a lot of games at the start of the season, but he didn't work any for a month afterwards, and didn't work any games in the NFL in 1998 for the company. Now, whether that's because of this incident, I don't know. If it's not, it's really odd timing, because he broke the number one rule, or one of the top rules of broadcasting, which is to not make up stuff on the air and to not say things that you cannot verify yourself. I don't even get how this happens. I feel like this should go without saying, but if you're going to be a broadcaster, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you fact check everything, and don't say a fact on the air unless you are 100% confident that this is a fact. Because if you don't do that, well, you're going to be in serious trouble, as we found out with Paul Kennedy after this game in 1997. Because in 1997, when Murray broke the extra point record, his father was celebrating from up above. His wife was celebrating at home with a newborn, and apparently, his other father and wife were also celebrating too. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.